Now, I would like to introduce you to the second speaker for the day, Dr. Ford Track. Dr. Ford Track, a research associate, Department of War Studies, King's College London, lecturer in business, London School of Science and Technology, former assistant professor in education at Al Najah National University in Palestine. He is the author of Ethical, Safe, Self-Regulated Use of Digital Technology among undergraduate students and other research papers. He is the co-author of Evaluating the Effectiveness of Student Record Systems in Conflict-Affected Universities in Northwest Syria. Living under occupation, Palestinian teachers' experience and their digital responses, he led various projects for supporting refugees in Palestine and the UK. His most recent project was on enhancing the situation of the vulnerable refugees suffering from mental health issues in Palestine. His major research interests lie in the areas of educational politics, refugee education, instrumental technology, e-learning, and ICT in education. Dr. Track is currently writing a research paper on influence of utilizing educational constructive drama in enhancing speaking skills. He is the ambassador of the Nam Yang Britain Club, which is the only club in Britain that works on assisting refugees and asylum seekers in UK. So we'll be talking about instrumental development process in education. I welcome you once again, sir. Over to you.
Good afternoon here in England and good evening in India. My name is and I will be sharing with you about developing instrument, especially the survey. Just give me how to share your screen. Sorry, I just need to share. Yeah, okay. Can you see my screen now?
Yes, sir. Now it's not there. I think you need to share it again, sir.
Yeah, I said it. Yeah. So can you see my screen now?
Yes, sir. We can see the slide definition of survey.
Can you see my screen? Okay. So,
yes, sir.
Okay, great. So we will be talking about developing an instrument, which is the survey. And the survey is a research tool that can be used in quantitative research. So let's talk about the survey and the definition of the survey. Actually is a method that we can, through it, gather information from a sample of individuals when we cannot gather the information from the entire group or from the large group. So the information we gather from this individual or a small group, they are a member of the entire group that we will generalize the information or the result on after we collect the data. It's also through the questionnaire or through the survey. Some people call it questionnaire, some people call it survey. We ask people questions, either written one or verbally, in order to get the information for the research that we are conducting. And through the survey, we can produce a quantitative description on aspects of the study. So when can we use the survey? The purpose of using the survey, first, whenever we would like to study the characteristics of a group of people, or whenever we would like to provide the information to describe the situation. We are studying a situation and we would like to describe such a situation. For example, we would like to study the impact or the influence of COVID-19 on education. So in that case, we prepare some questions in order to give this information and see the influence of COVID on the education. Observing the situation and examining the cause and effect relationship. So through the survey, we can examine or we can investigate the cause and effect relationship between 2 or more factors. We could also measure the change through the survey. And in that case, we need 2 surveys, which is one prior our experiment, which is before the experiment. And then once we done the experiment, we do the survey again. And then we can compare before and after in order to measure the change. It also could be used to study attitudes or behavior and habits. For example, we would like to study the smoke attitude among undergraduates or among peers who are between 15 to 18. So in that case, we need to prepare an instrument or a survey in order to study this attitude. And also it helps us with the decision making. For example, we would like to know whether using technology, is it helpful or helping the students in education or not? So in that case, we can make a decision based on the survey or based on the data we collected. Anyway, any questions so far? I would like to keep on, if there's any question, so we can answer it before we move to the next. Is there any question or any queries regarding this survey itself and the purpose of using the survey? Okay. Now, the type of the questions we could use in the survey, there are 2 types of the question. The first type, we call it open-ended questions, where in this case, we allow people or respondents to express what they think in their own words. Means they can just write whatever they think. It's also enable the respondents to answer in as much details as they like in their own words. We will see the difference between open-ended and the closed-ended next. It's also rich information can be gathered, useful for descriptive. So through the open-ended question, there is no option being given. We just ask them the question and then they start writing their own words. Okay, this is an example of open-ended question which would be used for the survey or in the survey. What do you think about using technology in the classrooms? So in this case, we ask them and they can write as much as they want about their own experience or about how they think about using the technology in the classroom. This is about open-ended questions. The second type of the question, we call it closed-ended questions. The closed-ended question is structured the answer by allowing only answer which fit into the categories that have been decided in advance by the researchers. Means here, we give options to the respondents to pick up or to choose in order to answer the questions. So they have an answer, there are options where they cannot, if they think there is something else which is not listed, they cannot answer it. So in this case, the researcher themselves, they decide what categories they want into their research. It's limit the answers of the respondents to response options provided on the questionnaire. So in the closed-ended, there is always options where you only need to pick up an answer from the options which is provided. Example, are you happy? You could answer yes or no. For example, this is in the closed-ended. If it was open-ended questions, okay, we could ask, how do you feel? Then they could say whatever. If they are happy, why they are happy. If they are not happy, why they are not happy, and so on. Another question could be for closed-ended questions, which is, this is more popular to be used in the questionnaire. Statistics is an easy subject. In this case, the options could be, which is SD, strongly disagree, disagree, neutral, agree, and strongly agree. So in this case, they could respond to this question whether they are agree or they disagree, but they cannot involve their own opinion about it. For example, if they are, if they don't agree this, if they don't agree that the statistic is not, is it an easy subject, so they cannot explain why it's not easy subjects or why it's easy subjects. So they have no options of expressing more about themselves. It's just they have to pick up an option which is being provided by the researchers. Now, the close-ended questions, there are few types, which is there are 4 types. The first type, where it's multiple response, means the respondents here could use or they could select more than one choice. It's basically a multiple choice question. For example, do you travel? How do you travel to the class? So they could use either by their foot or by bicycle, by motorcycle, by horse, whatever options. But here, the students, the respondents, they could use more than an option. So sometimes I walk to the class, sometimes I use bicycle, sometimes I use motorcycle. So they could use more than one option, more than one answer. It's also, do you have a smartphone? Here they could say yes, they could say no. This is the list of multiple response for the close-ended. The second type, which is rank order scale. Here you should rank the options or the answers based on your own opinion. So it gives the respondents a set of items and ask them to put the items in some form of order, such as preference, importance, liking, effectiveness, and so on. So we give them an options, and the respondents, they have to put these items in order based on their own opinion. So the example here, please rank the following in order from 1 your favorite to 4 your least favorite, according to your own opinion. So for example, you could put the rice is my favorite, then the soup is my least favorite. So you put them based on your own opinion, you list them. So this is an example. Now, the third type of a close-ended question is called rating scale. In the rating scales, it allows the researcher to measure the opinions, knowledge, perceptions, behaviors, and extra of respondents in a quantitative manner using Likert scales. We will talk more about Likert scales in the coming slides. So the example here, how satisfied are you with your cell phone service? So you could use one option here. You cannot use more than one option in the rating scale. So in the Likert scales, where there is a rating scale options, you are only allowed to use one answer as a respondent. So if there are more than one answer, as a researcher, you have to take out the respondents from your study. For example, someone answered to this question like very unsatisfied, and another at the same time they choose neutral. You as a researcher, you cannot decide on the behalf of the respondents. So in that case, you should not include the respondents into your study. These respondents has to be taken out of your actual data. Now, the Likert scales, these are just examples of the Likert scales. We have agreement, we have importance, and we have frequency. So for the agreement, which is strongly disagree, undecided, agree, and strongly agree. And this is if we are deciding to have 5 Likert scales measurements. Some researchers prefer to use 7 scales, 7 measures, which could be strongly disagree, somewhat disagree, undecided, agree, or sorry, undecided, somewhat agree, and then agree and strongly agree. So it's all up to you as a researcher. to how you formulate the agreement scale. Example of this agreement scale could be, I like studying statistics. So you could say, I strongly disagree means you don't like studying statistics, or you could say, I strongly agree means you like studying statistics. The other Likert scale example is the importance. The importance, we start with number one, unimportant, of little importance, moderately important, important, very important. Okay, if you notice these two things, it's always starts with the negative things, with the negative feeling. So according to psychological researchers, they always preferred the questionnaire options to start with a negative options. So you cannot start the agreement, for example, with a strongly agree. It should be with a strongly disagree. And some people may ask why, what's the reason? So according to researchers, when you start with always positive, then it's encouraging the students or the respondents to always choose the first answer without even reading the question. So that's why we always put the negative one. So they read the question carefully and they respond based on their own opinion. So an example for the importance, it could be, how important is the teamwork to you? So you could say it's not important at all, or you could say it's very important. The frequency. The frequency here, and as I said earlier, the Likert scales, usually I use 5 Likert scales, but some researchers use it as 7 Likert scales. Some researchers use it as 9 Likert scales. It's all as you like as a researcher. So the frequency here, we start with never, rarely, sometimes, frequently, and always. So example for that, how often you use your phone during the lecture. So they could say, I never use my phone. They could say, well, it depends. So rarely, or sometimes, or they could say, I never put my phone away. So all these are examples for Likert scales. Any question about Likert scales questions or about the formulating question in the survey before we move to the next stage, which is the most important stage, talking about developing the questionnaire? Is there any question? Okay. Now, the instrumentation. I'm going to ask you, everyone, to just put in the chat how many stages of the questionnaire you think there are. Just type in the chat. I know I did a mistake. They were in the screen. But I would like to hear from you, how many stages do you think there are for developing the questionnaire? Can you write that in the chat?
Chart is not available.
There is a chat. Sorry? In the chat here.
Chart is disabled.
Oh,
Chart
okay.
is disabled.
Admin, could you please activate the chat? Yeah. Okay, sorry. Admin, could you please activate the chat so they could just type their answers, please?
It's
okay.
Certain technical
Now,
issues.
we're gonna go back to the present. No problem, no problem. It's all right. No problem, sir.
Okay, sir.
So basically, there are 15 stages for the questionnaire development. Let's start with the first one. The first one, when we choose the framework. So whenever you decide to develop a questionnaire from scratch, first of all, you have to choose your framework that you're gonna be guided through your questionnaire development. So without a framework, you cannot develop any instrument. Once you choose your framework, you have to decide what are the main variables that you would like to investigate or study under your study. Third point, or the third step, is you have to define these variables based on the framework that you have selected early. So without a definition of the variable, you cannot do any instrument. Once you decide and define your variables, you go to the next stage where you can start creating the items based on the definition. So based on the definition itself, you can start creating the questions, or we call it items, to measure this variable. Once you create the questions or the items, you have to check whether they are aligned with the definition of the variable. So the items or the questions you have created, it must be in aligned with the definition. Once you complete that point, you go to the next stage where you start selecting the response category or format. The response category here, or the format of the category, is an example of which I just showed just early. Which Likert skills or which answers or which options you're gonna use for each question. And bear in mind, some questions, okay? Some question, you cannot measure them with any Likert skills category with only specific one. For example, if you are measuring the use of technology among the students, okay, the best way to describe that, okay, is their agreement. You cannot just come and see us their frequencies, because it's not important for me how much they use technology. I just want to know whether using technology is helping them or not. So the category here, it plays a very good role in measuring the variable itself. And I will talk about all these things later on when we talk about the questions or the items validation. Stage 7, we have to check whether the category or the response format we have chosen, is it in aligned with the items, which is I just explained now. Number 8, once we done that, we can start validating our items with at least 15 experts. So if you try to validate your items with less than 15 experts, that will make your study less with a less quality. Sorry. 9, once we validate our items with the 15 experts, we have to calculate CVR, which is, we call it content validity ratio. Based on the content validity ratio, we will decide which items we will remain, which items we have to refine, and which items we have to delete. So the stage 10, we have to refine and finalize the items based on the CVR result, or based on the content validity ratio value. We define and finalize the items, and then after that we start writing the instructions for the questionnaire in order to start pilot testing our questionnaire with at least 30 respondents. So if you pilot your questionnaire with less than 30 respondents in the research, that is not acceptable. That is not acceptable. So the minimum number to pilot test your questionnaire, my friends, should be 30 respondents. And I will talk about these 30 respondents. Once you select these 30 respondents, they should be from your population or from your sample of the study. You cannot pilot, okay. For example, I want to study about COVID in the UK. You cannot go and pilot your questionnaire with people, for example, in America. You have to pilot your study with the people that you're going to gather the information from for your actual data. You cannot use the questionnaire to be piloted by different people. This is the first point. The second point, which is more important also, these 30 respondents or whoever you choose them for pilot study, they should not participate in your actual study. Okay, some people may ask, how would we know whether these people been participating in our pilot study or not? So as a researcher, this is your responsibility to decide. So for example, once you decide, I want this pilot study, you choose a specific school or a specific neighborhood or a specific company, a specific institutions that you know these institutions been participating in my study as a pilot test. So I will not give them the questionnaire again for the actual data. So I noticed based on my own experience, so many people pilot test with people, with the respondents, but they never categorize them to not be participate again in the actual study. Because if they participate again in the actual study, that will negatively impact your result of the study, trust me. Now, once you pilot your test, once you pilot your questionnaire, you estimate the reliability. The reliability here, which is based on the SPSS, you can check your Cronbach alpha, which is showing whether this questionnaire or these questions are they reliable to measure the variable or not. And then based on the reliability or Cronbach alpha, we remove bad items and we remain the good items. The SPSS itself, it will show us which items are poorly defined or poorly created, which we should take them out of the questionnaire, and the good items that needs to be remaining, which is measuring the variables. Once you've done that, you refine the items and finalize the questionnaire. And the final thing is you can start the data collections, means you can start collecting your actual data after you've done all this stage or this step, sorry. But you cannot, my friends, you cannot do one step before another. These steps are in order, and these steps, myself, I created them based on my own understanding of a Creswell steps in 2013. So my reference here is a Creswell 2013, but if you go there, you will not see this formulated steps as it is here. I was personally doing it based on my own understanding. Now, the CVR or the content validity formula, there is a format you need to follow after you collect the response from the experts, which is the CVR formula. So the CVR formula, it's NE minus, in bracket, N divided by 2, in total divided by N divided by 2. So NE here is the number of panel members indicating an item as essential or its perfect match. So the NE, how many experts they said this items is perfectly measuring the variable, and the N capital is in total how many experts you send to. Okay, for example, I send the questionnaire to be validated by 20 experts. So for the first question, there were 15 members or 15 experts who said this item is perfectly matched. So in order to calculate the CVR, it needs to be 15, which is the number of people who said this items perfectly match minus n divided by 2, which is 20 divided by 2, which is 10, all divided by 10. So 15 minus 10 is 5, divided by 10, which is 0.5. Means here, sorry, 0.05, yeah, 0.5, which means here the CVR value is 0.5. I'm going to show you now the value which is decided whether these items need to be remain or needs to be taken out. So according to Loesch table, for minimum value of content validity ratio, so if you have only 5 experts, the minimum value has to be 0.99. So if you have from 5 to 7, minimum value needs to be 99. What does that mean? So if you have 5 experts measuring your questionnaire, means you need to get almost all of them agree this item is correct. While if you have 40 students, 40 experts, you need only 29% of these 40 who could say this item is perfectly matched with the variable. That's why I said at least 15. So the 15 is a good number where you need 50-50. So if 50% of them, they said okay, and the other 50 said no, you can remain this item. While if you have less than 15, you almost always, you need to get at least, almost all of them agree this items is been okay and perfectly matched. Okay, I'm going to show you now a sample or a template for what we call it content validity template. Because most of the time, people send me a questionnaire to validate, but I always reject to participate. It's because they did not follow the instructions for the content validity template. So this is the example where I personally always use. First of all, you need to introduce your topic of the study fully. And then this is an introduction about yourself, who you are, and what are you studying, and what is the topic you are studying, and what is the purpose that you are contacting me. And then here, some instructions for the expert themselves about how you're expecting them to respond to your own questionnaire. Now, these are the template. So if I don't receive the questionnaire or the survey or the instrument in this template, I will never participate in validating these items. So first, you need to give me what is the construct or the variable, we call it. So what are the variables? And then what are the operational definition for the variable? So without giving me the operational definition of the variable, I will not accept to participate in the validation. And then what are the items or the questions that you are willing or you are expecting to use them to measure the variable? And then this is another important part where you need to decide and tell me what are the response categories you are using for the items. And then this is the expert assessment. So most of the time, the students or the other researcher contacting me, they're giving me a questionnaire to validate, they will miss at least one of these two important category, which is the response categories or the operational definition. Means they could give me the questionnaire without a definition, or they could give me the questionnaire without a category, response category, or they could give me the question without both of them. Sometimes when I get back to the researcher, so if I know the researcher very well and I am willing to help, I could say, could you, I always send them an email, could you please send me the operational definition? Some of them, they don't even have the definition. And then I say, I'm sorry, I cannot validate your questionnaire. So that's all from me for today. And you are always welcome if you have any question or any inquiries regarding the questionnaire or the instrument.